In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, hello everybody, hope you are doing great. You're watching FOADEBATE. Today I'm honored to host Robert Fantina, an American political author, activist, and journalist. We are here to discuss the regional and global ramifications of the recognition of Palestinian statehood. Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you for your time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. To begin, from your perspective, what is the most significant immediate consequence of this recent wave of recognitions from European nations?
Well, certainly it shows Israel and the United States that they cannot bully nations into simply ignoring genocide. They haven't done what they should do to prevent genocide or to stop it. But this indicates that countries around the world and people around the world recognize Palestine and Palestinians as Palestine as a country and Palestinians as human beings who are entitled to the same rights that everybody else has. So the countries that have recently recognized Palestine have helped to influence that feeling around the world and have demonstrated to Israel and the United States that sentiment.
So how does this diplomatic movement alter the strategic position of Israel in the region?
Well, the unfortunate thing is, until the United States bends to world's will, it will not alter Israel's position drastically. And until these countries, such as Canada, Great Britain, France, until they actually take action beyond the symbolic recognition of Palestine, then we're not going to see much change on the ground. We saw a very unjust resolution pass the Security Council just a few days ago. And we see what's happening in Gaza. The genocide has not stopped. In the West Bank, the oppression and the violence against Palestinians is continuing. These countries now that have recognized Palestine have to take concrete action against Israel. That is what will cause a change in the situation in the Middle East.
And what signal does this send to other Arab states, particularly those that normalize relations with Israel under the Abraham Accords?
This indicates to them that they are out of step with the world, they're out of step with international law, they're out of step with justice and with human rights. These countries betrayed their own people and the people of Palestine when they normalized relations with Israel. They got nothing in return from Israel as far as the Palestinians are concerned. They got nothing in return regarding human rights or justice. They got some benefits from the United States, but their leaders have to wonder, after 2+ years of genocide and the responses of the people in those countries, the people in the countries that have, in the Middle Eastern countries that have normalized relations with Israel during the so-called Abraham Accords. In some countries forbid any pro-Palestinian demonstrations, but those that have seen a strong, overwhelming support for Palestine. So the fact that now countries around the world are recognizing Palestine more and more just indicates to the leaders of those countries that have recognized, those Middle Eastern countries, they're out of step with society, they're out of step with their people, and they're out of step with international law and justice.
Great. Could this empower Hamas diplomatically, or does it primarily strengthen the Palestinian Authority's standing?
Well, the Palestinian Authority has no standing within Palestine. It is simply a puppet government of the United States that is there to do Israel's bidding. A couple of years ago, Mahmoud Abbas canceled elections that were very anxiously looked forward to by the Palestinian people. And he canceled them mainly because his popularity was at about 19%, and he knew that he would not be elected, and he needs to stay in office to please the United States and Israel. So these new these new recognitions of Palestine do strengthen the Hamas position, because Hamas is the resistance, and it represents the resistance. There are other resistance groups throughout Palestine, but this just shows that the resistance is having an effect. It's having a positive impact on the world. Certainly, the Palestinian people are suffering horrifically in ways that we can't even comprehend living where we do. But for the Palestinians, who are the most courageous and resilient people I've ever encountered, they're suffering, but they are continuing to resist. They're continuing to show the world that they will not be defeated, that they, like every other people in the world, is entitled to self-determination, and they will not rest until they have achieved that.
Great. Let's jump to the global implications and the U.S. role in this case. Is U.S. influence in the region diminishing?
Oh, absolutely. Let's talk for a minute about the U.S.'s long-term peace prospects in the Middle East, and for Palestine particularly, and its brokering of negotiations between Israel and Palestine. First of all, the United States has never been an honest broker. The United States has always wanted to have Israel as its ally, as the only powerful country in the Middle East, and it provides, it makes Israel that by all the money and armaments that it sends it every year. So the United States has never been an honest broker. And also, negotiations have never been required. What's required is adherence to international law. Now, if we look at the United Nations resolutions in 1948 that established the country of Israel, that was unjust in every way that can be looked at. But if that is to be accepted, then those borders need to be accepted. Israel has never respected those borders and continues not to. It wants to annex the entirety of Palestine. Now, the second part of your question was U.S. influence. U.S. influence in the world has been declining for some time. Donald Trump, in both his first term and the current term, has accelerated that lack of influence. He threatens countries, he bombs countries, he supports the bombing of countries, but his economic policies have driven several countries to seek trade partners away from the United States. Products and services that they either bought from or sold to the United States, they're now looking for and finding other markets for. So as the United States' economic power diminishes, and as other countries, China and India, to name two, increase in economic power, the United States' influence will continue to decrease. The decrease of U.S. influence in the world will be a good thing for the entire world. It will bring more peace and more prosperity to the world.
The U.S. has consistently vetoed Palestine's full UN membership. What do you think about it? Does this new reality make that position untenable?
The United States will continue to veto U.S. or Palestinian membership in the United Nations because it still wants to do what Israel wants. Israel and the United States have a very complicated and disturbed and dysfunctional relationship. The United States sometimes requests Israel to do something. Israel does whatever it wants to. And the United States continues to send it money and arms. The veto power that the U.S. has in the Security Council is very unjust. The whole situation of how that is established. The Security Council has all the power. The General Assembly, which represents all 193 members of the United Nations, has no real power, only some influence, but not any power to implement actions. The United States will continue to veto any resolution supporting Palestine until such time that the opposition of the people of the United States vote out Zionist leadership, such as Donald Trump. And we are seeing that. We're seeing a greater recognition of Zionism as an evil in the United States, and a greater recognition of Palestine as the side of justice, and Israel and the United States the side of violations of international law, the side of war crimes and crimes against humanity.
Great. And how are other global powers like Russia and China likely to leverage this shift in their foreign policy?
Well, we may see some significant shifts there as Palestine is recognized by more countries, and Palestine has natural resources. Palestine is capable of producing products and services that the world wants, and China and Russia would be two markets for those products and services. Right now, nothing is coming out of Palestine because of the genocide in Gaza and the horrific oppression in the West Bank. But those countries will want, one, to benefit their own economies and their own people by looking for another source for their products and another source to gain products from. And they will also want to show the United States that they are not going to follow U.S. dictates. And they will, if they want to trade with Palestine, they will, despite what the United States government officials say.
Can it create tangible pressure for a renewed and meaningful peace process, or do you see this as a symbolic gesture?
Well, all of the recognition can create the momentum for a reasonable peace process. But as long as the United States is involved, that will not happen. The peace process must be done through the auspices of the United Nations, whether that's the General Assembly or some other UN body. But the United States must have no involvement in it if any justice is to come to the Palestinians, and if anybody who is guilty of this genocide is going to be held accountable. So the United States has to be moved out of it, which we're not seeing good signs of that, or positive signs of that right now with that recent resolution, where Donald Trump will head the committee that's going to decide how Gaza will be governed. The United States and Israel are currently working on a plan for Gaza that does not include the Palestinians. So again, the United States has to get out of the way if there's going to be peace. But the United States is not looking for peace in the Middle East. If there's peace in the Middle East, there's a reduced market for its weaponry, and that's not what the United States is interested in.
And what would be the next step for the international community to take following these recognitions?
Well, the international community now some countries must move forward with a resolution in the Security Council that will represent justice for the Palestinians, not this one that was passed a week ago. If that can't happen, there are means in the General Assembly to pass binding resolutions. It's not easy and it's not often done. But if the Security Council, with its limited number of members, will not bring justice to the Palestinians, the 193 members of the General Assembly, the majority of them that vote overwhelmingly on any pro-Palestine resolution, must get together to invoke that means for the General Assembly to actually be able to take action. That is what will bring justice and peace to the Palestinian people.
Fantastic. For the last question, in your view, what is the realistic timeline for a viable sovereign Palestinian state?
Well, it's been set back, unfortunately, because the entirety of the Gaza Strip needs to be rebuilt. The destruction there is unlike anything that's been seen in modern history. The level of infrastructure destruction is just astounding. It's said that about 70,000 people have been killed, but some estimates put that at least 10 times as high. And we don't know how many bodies are buried under rubble. It'll probably never be known, and it depends partly on who is responsible for rebuilding of Gaza. If it's the United States, they're going to hide the body count. They're going to ignore it and say, "Oh, it was the 70,000," which no one really believes because of the amount of destruction. So, but other countries have been rebuilt. They haven't experienced the same destruction that Palestine has in Gaza and what's happening in the West Bank too. But they have been rebuilt in a matter of a few years if the international community will take action to do it and will insist that it be done, will not be blocked by Israel and the United States and countries like you mentioned, Russia and China. If they will take the lead and say, we're going to rebuild Gaza, we're going to demand that the illegal settlements in the West Bank are vacated and turned over to the Palestinian people, and that all the roadblocks and the IDF soldiers who are just terrorists are all expelled from Palestinian land, then within 3 to 5 years, maybe optimistic, we can see a viable functioning Palestinian state. Another thing that has to happen is that Israel needs to release from its prisons the leaders of pro-Palestine movements. One of the things it has done successfully is deprive Palestinians of leadership. There are people in Israeli prisons illegally under international law who can lead a new Palestine. They must be allowed to do so.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Is there anything crucial on this topic that we haven't discussed that you believe our audience needs to know?
I think we've touched on all. I want to stress again that the United States should have no role in rebuilding Palestine, in rebuilding Gaza, and in establishing Palestine as a viable nation, because the United States will never be a fair broker. It has proven that for decades that it won't be. Other countries have to come in and take the lead. that's when we will have justice and peace for the Palestinian people.
Thank you so much. Thanks again for your invaluable insights. God bless you.
You're very welcome.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.